Oh my goodness. Sal, you ever think to yourself, this must be what it felt like to be in the band on the Titanic, right? Like, I guess we're just entertaining people as the ship goes down. I guess that's what we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, it beats running for lifeboats. I
Yeah.
mean,
You
why
just
not?
accept, we just embrace it. Like,
Yeah,
at least I'll give some people something to listen to.
yeah. Maybe people will remember.
Maybe the people will write about it. Maybe James Cameron will make a movie about it and they'll feature us prominently. And
Right.
maybe.
I
We'll
doubt it.
see. But listen, gang, I want to thank you and invite you and welcome you to Krypton Academy. This is the show where we talk about Superman movies, leading up, of course, to James Gunn's latest entry into that franchise. And I'm your host, DJ Wooldridge. With me, as always, is Sal. Hey, Sal.
What up?
Oh, my goodness. Now, sip of water. You're welcome, everybody. If you would like us, this is live. We're doing this live. We do drop the audio versions of this on Patreon. If you're not checking it out live, thank you for joining us later. If you are watching live and you would like us to read your comment on the air, you can do that through the super chat. Not only does it support the show, and we thank you for your support. That's how we're able to do content like this, but it'll get your comment on the air. I am going to cheat a little bit because before we even went on, Lego Monster 21 asks, I know this is a Superman show, but what are your thoughts on Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man? And I put a poll out on patreon.com/onlystupid-answers. And I asked you guys, because we kind of put Spider-Verse on hiatus to cover X-Men, the animated series. And I'd wondered, I was wondering how people were feeling about it. And there's a new Spider-Man show, and like that, maybe that's the opportunity to bring Spider-Verse back. I'll also note Venom: The Last Dance is dropping on Netflix in about a week.
I saw that. Oh no. Free. That's fine with me. That speaks my language.
That's that people are like, well, Craven's streaming. I'm like, we are not going to cover one of those Sony Spider-Man movies until they are on a streaming service Sal and I are already subscribed to.
Yes.
That is the rule.
I can't justify paying for.
That is the rule. Anyway, so the point is, based on your poll, overwhelmingly, you guys would like us to cover your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. So we are going to start doing that. It'll probably be it's kind of a bummer because they are like shotgunning episodes of that show out, so it'll probably have all been released by the time we start covering it. So it'll be a little bit over time, especially, and I am going to want to cover Venom: The Last Dance, so we're going to figure out the scheduling of it, but we are going to cover that show. I don't know about you, Sal, but knowing we're going to cover that show, I watched the first 2 episodes. I'm not watching anything else until we cover it.
Oh wow. No, I am the opposite. I'm just choking down episodes like I'm like running a marathon. I'm just trying to get the episodes done.
So is Disney.
Yes.
But yeah, I'm going to wait until we start covering it. But we are going to start covering it. So Spider-Verse will be coming back to cover your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. If you wouldn't like to listen to those episodes, you can do that over at patreon.com/onlystupid-answers. Also, is that all the business stuff? Is that all the, I will say, and I'm going to mention it again later, go to dangerboycomic.com. My new comic is coming to Kickstarter on the 18th. And you can sign up to our pre-launch page on the 18th. I will tell you guys more about that later in the episode. But in case I forget, there's my plug at the top. But I'm very excited about it. It's my take on superhero comics. You guys have been hearing me talk about superheroes for a long time. I am a fan of the genre, but I do think there's ways for it to evolve and to grow. And that's kind of the impetus for creating this book. So go to dangerboycomic.com to learn more. Now, let's dive into, we've done Superman. We've done Superman 2. We've done Superman 3 and Supergirl. Now it's time for Superman 4, The Quest for Peace.
Oh yeah, this is probably my first Superman movie. Like this is the first Superman movie I ever saw.
I know. I think my first one I saw would have been the original Superman. I am kind of jealous of you because you got to work your way up. Like you started low and you're like, this, especially if you're a kid, I'm like, this is great. And then if you work your way backwards, you're like, oh my God, they just keep getting better.
Yeah. Oh no, it was 4, then 1 and 2, and then that was it.
Yeah, good. So here's the thing that's funny about this movie is obviously I've seen pieces of it. I am aware of it. It is in the zeitgeist. Family Guy's made jokes about it.
Yes, that's right.
But what was funny about watching it now as an adult and watching these movies in order, and I've come to really like this format of watching stuff in the order of release. Adam and I do a show called Slash Pick where we're watching slash movies in order, and you kind of see how they feed into each other. Like, if you guys haven't checked out that show, the thing we've uncovered is the relatively obscure Canadian slasher film Black Christmas is actually hugely influential, like massively influential to slashers. Yeah, it's wild because it inspired Halloween. And so then it kind of came this like weird cornerstone that every slasher since then has kind of like homaged in some way. Like POV from the killer's perspective starts with Black Christmas.
Interesting.
Anyway,
okay.
There's also like a trend of like the phone, like, oh my God, the killer's calling or whatever. So anyway,
you're learning about like how it informs.
Yeah, so it's interesting watching these in order. The interesting thing for me about Superman 4, The Quest for Peace, is that it's a bummer that this movie is as bad as it is because it doesn't need to be. Like on paper, a lot of the stuff going, like, in my opinion, other than a lot of they will talk about it. They got their budget like cut. I'll just say it now. I have it in my notes here. How much was it by? They went from 36 million to 17 million.
That's a severe cut. That's to the bone, baby.
That's like, to the bone, especially for a Superman movie.
Yeah, that's like the kind of budget that you could afford if, like, let's say Richard Pryor was in it and they fought like a computer. That's the kind of budget. But if you're gonna introduce like an evil Superman, you're going to need all the budget you can handle.
Yeah, and so the thing is like that other than the fact the effects are bad, and I would argue, I don't know if you feel the same way, Sal, I enjoyed this more than Superman 3.
Yeah, no, it's
just more a better Superman movie.
For a variety of reasons. For one, Lex Luthor's in it. For another, there's an evil Superman for him to fight. Like, this is the thing that everyone has been complaining we haven't gotten.
Yeah.
And it's like the thing for me, because it was the first Superman movie I ever saw. When I heard people complaining from Superman Returns onwards, like, when are we going to get Superman punching somebody? I'm like, it killed the franchise, him punching somebody.
It died on the vine because of Superman 4, The Quest for Peace.
Yes.
Oh man, with Nuclear Man. Oh my God.
Nuclear Man.
Why? So I'll also say at the top that I think like 45 this movie was breezy. It was like an hour 30. I'm like, thank God. It's the main praise I can give to the Venom movies. They keep it short, baby.
You didn't get out. They don't want people thinking about it too much. They don't want people dwelling on this movie. They're like, all right, you saw it, moving on.
Because there's nothing worse than like what was it, Argyle, where it's like, wait, this is 2.5 hours long. What are we doing? What's happening right now?
Yeah, how do you justify that decision? Like,
so they cut 45 minutes, and I meant to watch one of the clips because apparently there was a proto Nuclear Man. There was a Nuclear Man 1 and a Nuclear Man 2, and Nuclear Man 1, they say it was supposed to look more like a Bizarro. He's got chalky skin and like shock black hair.
Okay,
but at least they try, because I don't know what you saw watching this. It's like, why not just do why not do Bizarro?
On one hand, it's like I totally get the impetus behind making Bizarro. On the other, like, Bizarro's goofy looking, and he would only look worse if he was in this movie. Like, he would look stupid, and it would only add to the fodder of don't just do the thing. Don't do the thing that everyone wants, because we tried that, and it's like, you barely, like, no. It's not enough to make it look like the thing. It's got to have heart and character and matter, and you got to put a little bit of, like, chutzpah behind it. You got to put some money in there.
Yeah. You got to put the effort into it. I'm actually going to see, can I do this on the fly? Ooh, this is risky, gang. Can I put in an asset while we're doing the show? Just so you guys can see. Let's see if this works. So you can see what the Nuclear Man 1. Here we go. Nuclear 1, Nuclear Man 1, gang.
Yeah, that's Meatloaf and Rocky Horror.
It is. It is.
That ain't. I mean, like, so. Can you actually explain a little bit about, like, was it that they made the whole movie he looks like that, and then they went,
no. So here's what happened. Let me see if I have it. My understanding is Yeah, so there was 45 minutes cut from the film after a test screening. You'll recall, Sal, in the movie, there's quite a bit of conversations of Lacy wanting to take Clark to this club because he's supposed to be doing an article on the youth in Metropolis or whatever.
Uh-huh.
Apparently, Nuclear Man 1 attacks him in that club, and he's very quickly dispatched by Superman. And so
Ah,
Lex is like, all right, I need to up my game a little bit, which leads to Nuclear Man version 2.0, who's a very handsome boy. Is
yes, he
not
is.
Bizarro like at all. He's a very wait, I have his name here. It's Mark. Nope. Yeah, it's Mark Pillow. Is the
Pillow?
Pillow, yes.
That's spectacular.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
perfect, some might say.
yeah, I gotta say, it looks. I mean, if I were suspicious, 1987, did they make him look like He-Man on purpose?
Did they
You know
also
what I mean? Or are they like resentful of the fact that like this new upstart
oh
toy
yeah.
commercial is like usurping all the modern icons? Like for me, when I was a kid, all I saw was He-Man. I'm like, Superman fought
Yeah.
He-Man. And, obviously he doesn't have any of the powers and he talks like Gene Hackman. But,
Yes. Dude,
he's
what
got
a weird decision.
what a weird decision.
It has to be like they were casting and Mark Pillow comes in, and if you go over his IMDb, there's so many pictures of his shirt with his shirt off, and they're
Yep.
like, yeah, this is the guy. And then they heard him talking, they're like, okay, we're gonna have to
Oh,
pull like Singing in the Rain with this guy and have
yeah.
somebody
Yeah,
else.
we're gonna have to go around him. Yeah, we'll figure it out. And Gene Hackman's salary was so much, they were like, we're gonna make this effer work for it.
Yes.
Like he's gonna have to pull double duty.
Dude, and we'll get into it. They're not even bothering with the wig thing. Lex Luthor has hair now, whatever.
What's funny is he's also losing his hair. Like you can see, like Gene Hackman is balding, so it's like, oh well, just give him another couple of Superman movies and he'll be there.
He'll be there. He'll get there. Oh my God. Before we get into it proper, we do have a super chat post from Tea Time. I know DJ's a fan, but Sal, do you like Moz? I think this is My Adventures with Superman. I thought it was fine at best, but I don't care for how Supes is portrayed as this grating, adorable character. When I watch it, I just wanted to watch the animated series.
Yeah, I was not a fan.
Yeah.
I used to actually do quite a bit of work on a similar channel where we talked all about like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I watched the first episode of My Adventures with Superman, maybe the second one too, and I was like, I get why people love this. I also understand that the same people who love this show also tell me that like references from the 60s are absolutely 100% My Hero Academia references, and I'm like, enjoy your Superman movie, like enjoy your Superman show. It ain't for me.
Yeah.
But it's cute and I get it.
Mhm.
And I'm sure the people who made it have been like waiting to make that show their entire lives. And I'll just stick with Superman the Animated Series.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah. For me, of course, I think it's Studio Mir that does it. And of course, I'm going to love a Superman show animated by Studio Mir. I do, I would love, when I say Studio Mir, I would love a Superman show more in the vein of Avatar: The Last Airbender, who also Studio Mir also worked on, in the kind of maturity of storytelling. That
Yes.
said, I love it because, for one, I do think it is in Western cultures, specifically Western fan culture's best interest to pull from anime and manga, because that seems to be an art form where they're still allowed to innovate on things. Like it's like, okay, we're going to do 24 episodes of this show. Now we're on to a show about a guy with a chainsaw for a head. And then now we're done with that. Unless you're like, it's weird because on the one hand, you'll have like Cowboy Bebop, which is like what, 12 episodes, something. And it's one of the best things ever made. And then you'll have like Dragon Ball Z or Naruto, which will just never die. They will keep pumping that shit out forever. Anyway, it is a form where they get to innovate, where in Western culture, we're really afraid to do that. And I love the idea of that and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. It gives me both of those. It gives me so much joy knowing that this will be somebody's first iteration of that character, and it's a good take. For anybody that hasn't seen My Adventures with Superman, the very first episode, he's fighting a version of Livewire.
Yeah.
And to subdue her, what he ends up having to do is put her into like a bear hug. And it's very much of like, I don't want to hurt you, but I need to stop you kind of a situation. And it's so Superman. And it's like, thank God. Like that's so cool that like, as opposed to, there's a whole generation that their first version of Transformers is the Michael Bay movies. And that breaks my heart. That is brutal to think about. So anyway, Two takes on My Adventures with Superman. But now let's get into the one all the kids are talking about, which is Superman 4, The Quest for Peace. And right off the bat, you know, when the opening credits happen, like, oh well, they've lost all their money. That's the big degradation between these movies is those opening credit sequence each time.
Oh yeah,
the worst.
Well, and I remember like you talking about apparently, you know, like the first opening credit sequence was like so expensive, you know, it was like a couple $1 million, something like that. And I'm like, why?
Yeah.
Like, you know, whatever, you know, if you want to save some cash, just overlay some text from a montage of Clark Kent bumping into people in the streets of Metropolis, getting to the Daily Planet. Like, that's your opening credits. Like, you don't have to waste my time.
Yeah, just put some text over him having this daisy chain of accidents.
Yes,
situations in the city that Superman needs to save.
Yes, it could be that. Like, that'd be funny actually if Clark Kent bumbling causes like a, you know, a Rube Goldberg-esque kind of like chain of events that causes like a bigger catastrophe that he then has to actually solve. Like
I was thinking about
the same kind of joke as this movie.
I was thinking the opening scene of Superman 3 where it's this whole big, like everybody stumbling over each other. Like, what's happening? What's going on?
Yeah. What is this? This is just the roller skates, but like forever.
Yeah. So after the opening credits, Superman saves a cosmonaut in space. And I'll say this, because I was going to gloss over it, like, whatever, why is it in the movie? It shows you that I think the movie's perspective is in the right place. Like, I want to see Superman saving people in space, and I want to see Superman fighting another Superman guy, and I want to see him fighting Lex Luthor's. Like, yeah, these are all the right instincts.
Yeah,
you just don't have the money to do it. You just don't have the Superman money to make that happen.
No, but they also have the license, and they're not going to waste it.
They're not going to get rid of it. Well, what's interesting is, so this is the first one that's out from under the Salkinds. They sold it for Cannon Group. Cannon Group, after buying the rights from the Salkinds, enticed Reeves to return by offering him $6 million financing for his pet project Street Smart and approval over the story and the director. Richard Donner claimed in the commentary of Superman 2, the Richard Donner cut, that Cannon unsuccessfully asked him to return to the series. Donner declined his part due to a scheduling conflict with Lethal Weapon. That was the right choice for him.
Yes.
It was the good choice for him. Wes Craven was originally hired by Cannon to direct the film, but he and Reeves did not get along well, and Reeves demanded that a new director be brought in. Although Reeves recommended Ron Howard, Sidney J. Fury was hired.
That's wow. Why not? Like, you know, he recommended Ron Howard. Just go with it. Why were they like, nah? It's not like he's busy. He's not like making Apollo 13 yet. Like,
no. Well, that's the kind of Ron Howard. I think now Ron Howard, not now, post Apollo 13, Ron Howard would be like, yes, get him to do a Superman. Then he's just still a few years off. I think Happy Days ended in 1980. This is 1987.
You're right. So it's like 87. He's probably looking for a way to change, you know, directions.
Yeah. The other thing, and I feel like I brought this up in Supergirl, but this does blow my mind because I think, at least for me, because I think I look back at this as an artifact, and as an artifact, I'm like, yeah, this is kind of a fun, goofy Superman movie for the time. But then you look at the year 1987. This is 2 years out from Tim Burton's Batman.
Yeah.
Just for context of what we're talking about, it's like, yeah, okay, so this was cheesy and silly for the time.
It's a canon movie.
Yeah,
this is the same people who made the Master of the Universe movie around the same, like, only I think Master of the Universe came out around the same time as Batman.
Yeah.
Whoops. So there's no Master of the Universe 87, same year.
Yeah, same year as this. Whoops. Yeah. And that's why they cut the budget.
Guys make like, these guys make crap. You know, it's canon. They make you know, shit movies.
Yeah. So after he saves the cosmonauts, excuse me, he flies back to the farm on Smallville, and he's like, you know, what if I just randomly went to the spot where one presumes my ship was? I guess I've never once visited it, and there's a hole in the ground with a green glowing light. These two things that these movies, this era of superhero movies, really could dial in. And we'll get to one of them later, which is they really need to figure out they need to read a comic and figure out what Superman's powers are, because they don't. They don't know.
They don't know. They don't care. And it's weird because it's like you have a completely different creative team.
Yeah,
making this other movie and it's just as vexing as the cellophane S.
Yeah. They don't know. So that's one. The other thing is you need to get your color scheme on point, because green glowing means kryptonite, which means when I see something green and glowing in a Superman product, I expect them to start getting hurt.
Yep,
And
kryptonite.
Too many times it's like, here, this green glowing crystal is one of the good ones, and it's like, this is confusing.
It is, and I remember it. I think it was in the first movie, but it certainly brought up a couple times. This crystal does this, but not the same crystal as a kryptonite crystal. It's completely different. It's more perfect. I don't know. It's weird.
It's a weird one. So anyway, this crystal. So his mom talks and she's like, this is the spirit of Krypton, but you can only use it once. And I have in my notes, like, I don't understand what this is. I guess.
What does that mean? Is this the codex? What's happening?
Fucking codex. Don't you bring up the codex. It's not time yet, Sal. Save that for later. Guy comes and tries to buy the farm from Clark. And he doesn't. They're like, they're going to turn into a mall, which is like, where are you close to anything that would need a mall?
It's funny that they only need to be about 20 years later, because like in Sussex County, New Jersey, they built like a huge center in the middle of like a cornfield, and it's just like the whole, everyone in that town was like, "Boo! Don't do it!" And they were like, "We've already bought your politicians. We don't have anything. We just built." So they built it. Boom. Here's like just here's a Jersey Mike's and a friggin' like Panera Bread and a Target and all this crap in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And I'm like, is this just to employ everyone who lives here? Like what?
Yeah. What is the point?
Yeah.
Well, we know with a lot of that stuff, like on the highway, because I was doing some research for a project I was working on. A lot of this stuff, those like truck stops in the middle of nowhere or whatever, or there might be like a McDonald's or whatever. Those employees can be driving up to like 40 minutes. And I know if you're like me and you live in LA, like 40 minutes is that's not a long distance. When you get out to other parts of the country, 40 minutes is you're covering a lot of country.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Anyway, whatever. So they decide, I guess this guy was formerly a friend of his dad's. They decided to throw the ball around. Clark does his whole goofy bit. And then when the guy leaves, he like cranks that ball up into space. And I just wanted to cut to one of the Phantom Zone glass panes and all like close it up. And now there's a new villain just because
new guy. Yeah. Oh my God.
Oh man.
I do like him throwing the ball. Like you could tell, I mean, and I don't want to get too deep in the weeds here, but like Chris Reeve has opinions and he wants to do stuff with this movie because like he has more control because the people here who are making this movie have less. And one of them is like, that's a good moment for him. Like it's a character moment. And I'm like, yeah, we need these moments. It's something I really miss. I love a good quiet sequence of a character just kind of like wrestling with his own morality or situation that he's dealing with in this conflict. It's good. Good stuff. Him throwing that ball, I liked it.
Yeah, I think to your point and referencing this scene, I think something this movie does better than the previous one, specifically and the who was the guy? I just blanked on his name. The guy that took it over from Donner is another Richard.
Oh God, yes, yes. I think Richard Lester. Yeah.
So his version of this was really bad at this, and I think this movie course corrects. And I think it might be because actually, when I was watching it, for some reason, my brain, I thought Christopher Reeve directed it. He just came up with the story.
Yes,
but this movie does a better job of dialing back Superman being kind of cruel, like or like needing to prove himself to like bullies and stuff like that. There's one scene that we'll get to it later at the gym that kind of gets that way, but it's played more as an accident, like he just forgot. Oh shit, I'm Superman, as opposed to like I think in Richard Lester's hands, like he would have done the bumbling thing, and then the guy would have made fun of him, and then he would have cranked the ball in front of him to prove a point, and it's like, that's not Superman.
No, but they definitely would have done that. Yeah.
So Lex Luthor's back gang. Gene Hackman. This is where all that $17 million went, is getting Christopher Reeve back and getting Gene Hackman back.
Yeah.
Gene Hackman's back. He's in a chain gang. And he is saved by future Lex Luthor, John Cryer, playing Lenny. And I'm not going to lie, Sal, I kind of like Lenny. I kind of hate we feel the need to give Lex a dipshit sidekick. However,
it's not a woman this time.
I do think John Cryer makes some funny. He's like, every time he's like, "Oh no!" It's like it's a funny choice. He's making a funny choice with that line reading.
Yeah, as a kid, I hated him. I legitimately was like, "What is this? Is this for me?"
Yeah.
Like, because yeah, I was not a fan. But now it's like I was like, I mean, knowing it's John Cryer, I was like,
Yeah.
okay, like it's 87.
Yeah.
He is a member of the Brat Pack. Like he's already been doing this. So it's like
Mhm.
him just going, I'm gonna take a break. It'd be like if Judd Nelson was in this movie. Where it's like,
Yeah.
what the crap are you doing in this movie?
We got
And
to
it's like
appeal
they
to the
called me.
kids, Sal. We got to
Yeah,
appeal to them.
that's it. That's it. I don't know if and listen, as a kid, focus tested back then, not in 87, but like
Yeah.
I saw it on tape like
Yeah.
years later, but it sucked. I didn't
Yeah.
like it.
Well, that's the problem. When you're chasing those trends, man, dates your movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it just so happens that the aesthetic, Burton in his prime with Batman 89, and also Prince. Prince is timeless, but is able to escape the dating. The Prince songs date Batman 89. They just do. But the rest of that movie's strong enough that you're like, I will forgive it.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. Joker like dancing around in the art gallery to Prince. I'm like,
Yeah. All right.
okay.
All right. Don't chase trends, kids. But anyway, the more egregious thing I think in that scene is he comes up in a car that has these like big tuba like megaphones.
Oh God.
They're supposed to be the sound system of the car. Anyway,
Uh-huh.
somehow he lures the cops, the police guards, prison guards into this car. And I don't think they die. It's like G.I. Joe rules. Like they go careening over a cliff, but then they come climbing out.
Yeah, they're like, oh yeah.
Yeah, so this is how he gets Lex out. So guess who else is back? Margot Kidder as Lois Lane.
Forgivably. She's pretty good.
She's pretty good. She's pretty good. We'll get into a minute. The decision, like, what if we gave we'll get into Lacy in a second, but they kind of like cut Lois off at the knees in this movie. We got a couple more super chats from Tea Time. Remember when Bendis brought Nuclear Man back for a hot sec, or as Luthor says, Nuclear Man? I did not remember that.
Vaguely. I remember him saying he was going to do it, but I didn't read the Bendis run.
Yeah. There were some choices in the Bendis run that, like, I like the idea of the criminal organization that's trying to operate under Superman's nose. Like, that's an interesting concept.
Yeah.
Like, what does that look
like?
Yeah. Tea Time. To your point, Sal, Judd Nelson is in Steel. Oh my God, that's right. We're gonna have to cover Steel.
Oh yeah.
That might be the next one we have to cover.
Yeah, that's funny. I had not remembered that.
Well, hold on to it. We're gonna have to cover it. I got to make myself a note so I don't forget.
I think Steel's better than this.
Whoa! Shots fired. I've never seen it, so I can't.
It's not. I mean, it's a movie. Like, it's not like good, but it is a movie. Like it, and it's like, I'm like, that's Steel. This is the Steel movie. That's weird.
We're gonna have to, and then we'll watch Spawn. We'll just get derailed in all those 90s.
Movies. Yeah. That's not a bad idea. It's just watching all the 90s movies. We watched The Phantom, we watched The Shadow, we watched Spawn, we watched Tank Girl. Like
Tank Girl. Let's pick it up. What was it? Barbed Wire?
Meteor Man.
Mm-hmm. There we go. We're just gonna make this a 90s channel. Let us know.
Blank Man.
Yeah, whether you're into that. We'll just talk about stuff from the 90s.
Would like that. I think that's actually not a bad business strategy.
It's not a bad idea. We'll have a business meeting after this episode and discuss that. Anyway, yeah, so Lois catches a train. Oh my God. So the first scene, Lois is with Clark. She gets on a train. Clark doesn't, for reasons that, like, because he's doing this Clark bit. Did that cause him to train? Did he want to miss the train for some reason? Whatever. And then the driver of the train just keels over and dies immediately. Just done. X's in the eyes, the whole bit. And this leads to a sequence where Superman has to save the train. And it looks like it cost 10 cents and a stick of bubble gum. It is not a good looking sequence.
No, that's right. That's right. And it's like, we have to put this sequence in. He's faster than a local, he's stronger than a locomotive. And it's like, stay in your lane. Like, do you know what movie you're in?
Yeah. Do you know how much money you have? This is one of those things where it's like, I remember when we talked about the first Deadpool movie, that movie notoriously got its budget slashed. And they're like, so now this whole sequence has to, like, half the movie has to take away on this highway overpass. I'm like, or you could write a cheaper movie. Like, it's Deadpool.
Yeah.
Like, you could write a cheaper movie. This is one of those. Superman's different. Like, Superman, he's got all the powers. He's got all the, like, it's like you need the money.
Nobody's coming to a Superman movie that is like tightly budgeted. Like, no one's going to see a movie like almost like the one they pitched to Kevin Smith, where it's like, I don't want to see him fly. I don't want to see those that cape.
Yeah.
You know, like he gets beaten to death, and then he just like is figuring things out. Like, I mean, that's more or less Superman 2 is like the Kryptonians wear very modest outfits, and they're on wires.
Yeah.
They go to like the smallest Midwestern town in the world and like break a tractor. Meanwhile, Clark is in flannel for like 40 minutes. It's like, that's a pretty, people love that movie, but it's like pretty tight.
Yeah.
Like, shouldn't have cost much.
Yeah. So he saves the train. And then we're introduced at the oh my God. Yeah, so we're at the Daily Planet. We're introduced to this guy named Warfield, who really he bought the planet. It really kind of doesn't matter to the plot, other than to introduce his daughter, Lacy. And here's the decision making that's wild. So this is kind of a classic. Like, Lacy starts off as the stuck-up rich girl that one presumes, I guess, just through proximity to Clark, starts becoming a better, more open person.
Yes. She's charmed.
Yeah.
And she wants to be better.
Sure. This might also be part of the 45 minutes that was cut, like part of this arc. But what blows my mind, so this is going to be a running thing through the episode. And in fact, they're going to flirt with making a love quadrangle between Lois loves Superman, Lacy loves Clark, and we're going to have a 80s sitcom bit where like
they go on a double date. It's Three's Company, it's 1987. That's what the people want, right?
Which, by the way, that's not how you do this sequence. You don't do this sequence where they're both. You do a sequence where Clark is supposed to be on a date with Lacy across town.
Yes.
While Superman's supposed to be with Lois at another part in town. By having them all in the same space, it's like, these women are the dumbest people on the planet.
Yeah, they're dumb, and it's not feasible. Like, it can only be interrupted. You got to think, at least maybe it might be pulled off. If they're all in the same effing room, it's just not going to work.
There's no way.
Superman, what's your problem? Like, why are you entertaining this nonsense in the first place? Like, later when he gets called away by Lex, it's like, he's like, I got things to do. I'm like, oh, really? Because it seems like you had a pretty full afternoon dicking around in a sitcom.
Well, and what's funny about this too is that it feels like such a weird creative decision. Like, great guys, we got our core people back. We got Christopher Reeve, we got Gene Hackman, we got Margot Kidder. Now, we're also going to introduce a love interest that is more attractive and also into Clark and not into Superman. But also, she's the wrong choice. It's like, what are you doing? Clearly, he needs to be with Lacy. Like, that's
Lacy is great, and she shows that she's like not intransigent. She has like interests that are beyond Superman, but also she is capable of having her mind changed. Like, she is, and she has like this desire to see and grow and but do good. Yeah, no, Lacy is the obvious choice in this case. I mean, not, and it has nothing to do with the fact that I never found Margot Kidder attractive in the first place. Yeah. But, this is just like, why don't do that? Like, don't introduce. It was like in The Mask, another movie that we can add to our
90s watch along. Yeah.
When you introduced us to brand new film star Cameron Diaz.
Yes.
At the height of hotness. And it's also her first movie, but also never been hotter. And then they were like, but maybe the news columnist. Yeah. And it's like, look, yes, in Robert Hood Men in Tights, nothing is more attractive. Yeah. Peggy, I think her character name was. Yeah. But it's Cameron Diaz.
Cameron Diaz. Like, what are we doing?
What are you doing?
It's just a weird choice. The other thing that just to blow through all of the romance subplots in one go, bafflingly, we just talked about how, like, in some ways this movie handles Superman better because he's not like petty. Bafflingly, he's like, you know what? I'm going to show Lois who I am. Once again, through vaguely accosting her, I'm going to drop her off this building so that I can catch her with my glasses on, and then her eyes will be open and she'll see that I'm Superman, and then we'll go flying over the world. And I was like, this scene looks cheap and bad, but for the last Superman movie, let's just get this out of the way.
Yes.
And then we pull back everybody's favorite plot point from Superman 2, the magic kiss that makes Lois forget.
Yeah.
And he has her forget again. What are we doing?
I will tell you this. As a kid, seeing this movie, I remember finding that cruel.
Yes,
And I don't.
it is.
I'm not. My mind hasn't changed. Like, it is cruel. He's like, so what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna keep like. I like that moment. I like that happy birthday feel. So like, what I want to do is I'm gonna just keep revealing myself to her every once in a while, see how that goes, ride that wave, and then when it's worn off, I'll just kiss her memories away, get my groove back, and then if I feel like it, maybe I'll woo her again. Like, it's gross and weird, and I hate it. And it's like, I don't even know what the job, like what they're doing. Like, why are you doing this? For what purpose?
It makes me think of that Men in Black thing. Like, how many times have you flashy thinged that girl? Like, how many times have you done this, Clark?
How many times?
Erase her memory.
Right, because like we're checking in since Superman 3, but like, how many times has he done this?
Maybe that's why she gets like ditzier as the movies go on, as he keeps erasing her memory and like
little
go away.
She like loses her job because she just can't handle like the stress anymore, because like, she just doesn't have the mental capacity for it.
Yeah, you confront Clark on it, and he's like, "Listen, I need one vice, okay?"
Yeah,
I need one vice.
I hate it.
All right, so, and again, this is where we get to stuff where this movie has good ideas, and one of them is, so subplot is, this is at the height of the Cold War. I believe when they were making the movie, there was just an arms deal that had fallen through, and so this is on specifically Christopher Reeves' mind, but the other creators' mind as well, about nuclear nuclear proliferation.
Yeah.
Which is a problem we still haven't solved, by the way, gang.
Yeah.
But, listen, don't worry. If anybody saw that conference this week with Elon coked out of his goddamn mind and Trump mumbling in the corner, those guys, and yes, I do mean both of them, have the nuclear codes. Don't worry.
Yeah, no. Great. They've got it covered. Just trust your leaders blindly.
Yeah. Oh my God. Don't make comics political. Sorry.
Just talk about the comics.
Let's talk about the comics. But yeah, so for some reason, a teacher is playing this for students, like grade school teachers playing this for students.
Yeah, this is with the challenger. Like, that's what we do. And teachers took any excuse to be like, "Oh, current events. Just take the TV, wheel it into the classroom. Now I'm going to go drink.
Please leave me alone." And then she turns it off because it's just too disheartening. And she's like, "Kids, what can we do about nuclear proliferation?" And it's like, not a
whole lot. As a kid, in this school, nothing.
But this one kid is like, "No, bitch, we should all write Superman. He could do something about it." I'm like, that kid is correct. That's right.
That's a good point. This kid's going places. Now, that question is, has this kid written Superman before?
Yeah.
And he's like, I need numbers. Like, I need people on my side for this.
Yeah.
Like, if I said, like, I'm going to have to like miracle on, 21st Street, 34th Street.
Yeah. It's actually a really great, if the writers of this movie or the studio or whoever were a little bit smarter, this is actually a really compelling Superman story.
Yeah,
where there's this global problem that Superman could fix, and a bunch of school children are like, "Superman, can you fix this for us?" And then he has to grapple with, I mean, I can. Is that my responsibility?
Should I, though? Yeah.
Is that like, because the truth is, this is a tricky, this is kind of, I mean, I guess it depends on your perspective, because I'm going to say some stuff that maybe makes it sound not so tricky later, because Superman's kind of waffle on it. I'm like, "No, dude, you should just do this. This is the right thing to do." But it's tricky in that, I mean, this is technically, definitionally authoritarianism. He's like, "I'm going to take this decision away from you guys, and I'm going to make it for you," which is great when it comes to getting rid of all of our nukes. Then it's like, yeah.
Right.
But if it's like, I'm now going to decide I don't like this guy ruling this country, I'd rather have this guy. That's the shit the U.S. does, and it's usually for bad reasons.
Right. It's just like, you can't. It's a slippery slope, as they say. In Superman's case, it's like, getting rid of nuclear weapons, good. Toppling dictatorships. We're probably going to see that too. But like, in Superman movies and so forth. But like, will we? Where do you draw the line?
Yeah, where's the line?
Like, what if he's like, "Oh, healthcare is a human right. I'm just going to force all the healthcare companies to like become nonprofits and just lower their prices to run."
And it's like, rates. But it is, and I think this is what it's compelling. And you need a really sharp writer, I think, to navigate it
tackle it.
well, which is why I think so many people punt the ball and avoid it. This movie does. To deal with this is one of the tricky parts of superheroes, because at the end of the day, it is a strongman fantasy. It is the idea of what if somebody big enough and strong enough just came along and fixed all our problems, when the truth is normally when a guy comes along and does that, they do bad things with that power.
Right. They're not like they don't care about you. They're not actually going to solve your problems. They're not interested in your problems. They're looking to like
enrich themselves, basically.
Enrich themselves,
yeah.
exactly.
And so that's why, and this is much more complicated. It's much easier to fantasize about one guy coming in and fixing all the problems. It's much more complicated to be like, well, we need to practice collective action and work together.
Exactly. Like we need to dissuade ourselves of that impulse. Like
and it cuts against the American myth and all that stuff. And now, Sal, I do feel like things are getting a little too political in the Superman, the quest for peace.
True, but the movie is about that. Like Reeves is like, I want to talk about like the nuclear disarmament problem. Like it's stupid. We should just do it. And I'm like, that's the point. And
that's it. But there's never once in history of comics ever been political, Sal. So let's cut away from that for a second, so I can talk to you about my comic.
Yes,
it's definitely not political in any way. Danger Boy and the Antagonists. It takes place in an entirely fictitious, like, Sal, could you imagine a world where a geriatric president has just taken over the country and a group of strong men are abusing the citizenry? And it's just, this is
a rich original idea that
I know
I'm hearing for the first time.
Thankfully, we'll never have to deal with that in our world. But in a world where the people that are labeled superheroes might actually be more of a problem than a solution, our hero Danger Boy and a group of misunderstood outsiders need to band together to save their city from what would be the premier superhero team, the Statesmen. And working with me on this book, here's some art from Sean Peacock that I think is just Sean is knocking it out of the park. This is some stuff that some of this you might see may post or be on previews if you go to dangerboycomic.com. But I did want to show you some of the inks he's doing.
Ooh.
Just killer work. I think this is some of the best stuff I've ever written. Here's a look at the Statesmen, our antagonists in the book. If you like some of the kind of like postmodern revisionism of something like Invincible, or the neon cyberpunk dystopia of Batman Beyond, or even something like the energetic flavor of something like Super Sentai or like My Hero Academia, all that stuff. There's so many influences in this book. I think if you're watching this show, here's the thing, I'll say it this way. If you love superheroes, or if you hate superheroes, but either way, you're ready for the next thing. You're ready for the next step. This is what that is meant to be. This is me and Sean working on, like, how do we push the superhero genre into the 21st century? We have all the media that celebrates superheroes. We have a lot of media like The Boys or Watchmen to deconstruct it. And I enjoy all those things. What's the next step past that? Kind of like moving past the kind of like Gen X nihilism. Everything sucks. I don't disagree, but let's look for, like, how do we get out of that? Because that's part of what superheroes are meant to be, is kind of aspirational. And so what if we start at a place that's kind of like, Watchmen is an influence. Please don't compare my book to Watchmen. It's one of the greatest comics of all time. But like, if we start off in like a Watchmen or The Boys, kind of like authoritarian spot, and work our way out of that, what does superheroism look like? How does it evolve out of a situation like that? Kind of like look at what actually makes a hero. Those are all the stuff we're going to be exploring while keeping things kick-ass, fast-paced, colorful. I think you guys are going to love it. We are launching on the 18th. Please go. You can go to dangerboycomic.com, sign up for a pre-launch page. If that way you'll know right when it launches, and that's important because within anybody that backs in the first 48 hours will get this print by Sean Peacock, signed by him. We're only offering this within the first 48 hours. Everybody that picks a physical tier, so if you're actually grabbing the comic, this will be thrown in there. It'll be signed by the artist.
Ooh.
This, of course, is an homage to the original Captain America 1 cover.
Yep.
Trying to keep that spirit of Jack and Joe alive, especially in this time. Don't have comics be political. That cover's 80 years old, so it's always been that way. But anyway, dangerboycomic.com. I really think y'all will be into it. So go check it out, please, and thank you. Now, getting back to our completely not political superhero movie, Superman: A Quest for Peace. So they do a little bit of back and forth. Maybe this is the reason we get them buying the newspaper, because there's a lot of Daily Planet headlines that are like, Superman says drop dead kid and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And this is where we get because I guess so Superman inexplicably goes to the Fortress of Solitude and is like, hey, remember all those dipshits, that council that like really dicked over my dad? Let's see what they have to say about nuclear disarmament. And he starts that conversation with them. Listen, I know I'm not supposed to intervene. It's like, bitch, what have you been doing the past 4 movies?
You turn back time to get laid.
You turn back time. Oh my God.
What are you talking about? Intervene. You humiliated a trucker. You know,
that guy's in therapy still.
Yeah, exactly. He spiraled into a complete like well of depression.
Whatever. I'm gonna be honest with you, Sal. I kind of zoned out with what these guys said. I'm like, what? He clearly is not.
Oh, they're just saying about rabble. They might as well just be South Park characters.
Like, yeah.
Just,
don't do it for reasons. And this is another missed opportunity, because I feel like you could have Grant. We've already seen how Krypton got destroyed in the previous one, although I don't know that we know the context. This is a great opportunity to be like if I were doing a draft on this, I would at least have the thought of like, yeah, what if Laura shows up and be like, you could prevent what happened to our world from happening to this world, which is kind of on paper why we sent you here.
Yeah. Yeah, you are kind of like the savior. Like literally, Jor-El is a monologue about how you're like the Christ of this earth.
Yeah.
So, you should probably intervene.
Yeah.
That'd be cool. I can't imagine a movie made in the last like 15 years that would feature Superman like facing against like, I don't know, like a court hearing about whether he should or shouldn't be involved.
Yeah.
But I can imagine that if they did it, it wouldn't be embarrassing or weird or antithetical to the character. It certainly wouldn't involve a giant jar of, Lex Luthor's urine.
Or they wouldn't, right before Superman gets to say anything interesting, they wouldn't blow up the whole building. Like, that'd be stupid. Like,
and have Superman like look kind of just annoyed as opposed to like sad
that it happened. Anyway, thankfully, this is the worst Superman hearing we've had.
Yes, and at least it's in the UN.
Yeah. Well, so this specifically, so what happens is there's some back and forth. Superman decides this is where he goes to talk to Lois. I don't even think they talk about this, but this is where he reveals himself to Lois, and for some reason this clears his head, and he decides to do it. He goes to the UN. I know Christopher Reeve mentioned in his book how like if Dick Donner was doing it, they would have done all these things to make this feel epic, but they were doing it on shoestrings, so it's just kind of like he just walks up to the UN. Yeah. That said, I do think Christopher Reeve gives a pretty good speech about I have it here. He gives this pretty rousing speech on getting rid of the world's nuclear weapons. I have in my notes, like, and considering we're probably a week away from the nuclear codes being given to a chat bot, it's hard not to feel emotional about this moment. Like, it's like, yeah, I wish Superman would get rid of our nuclear weapons.
Yeah, that'd be nice. At the very least, the nuclear weapons. If not, some kind of review. If you're not reading Absolute Superman, like the U.S. military basically hands over the keys to Brainiac, and it's kind of like,
yeah, I am actually. I think Absolute Superman. Maybe it's because I'm a Superman guy. Of the Absolute books, Superman is my favorite of the Absolute books.
I understand why. Yeah.
Not on the fence about the cape. What we're doing with the cape and having it be like what
the most recent issue completely sold me on it. I don't.
Okay, all right. I'm one behind. So we'll see.
You'll dig it.
So far I've been digging it. So he makes this speech. He decides to get rid of all the nuclear weapons. He like grabs them all and puts them to a net, and it's hilarious because the net is like the net is probably the size of my house.
Like a fishing net. No, it's like a deep sea fishing net. And I'm like, there are more nukes than that.
Yeah, you need a net the size of a state to get rid of all of the nukes.
And maybe like it's like a jump cut. Like, no, I just went multiple trips. Like,
yeah. Well, we do see that this is not supposed to be all of the nukes because he does stop another nuke later.
Yeah.
Important for the plot that he does this. So he throws him in the sun. There's a bit I jumped over where Lex steals a strand of Superman's hair
One of my
and then
favorite
he used them.
sequences, one of the most memorable moments for the movie for me, where he gets like some shears or whatever, bolt cutters, and cuts the hair. And I was like, I loved that. I loved the idea of Superman, because something that Superman would do, and it's something that Lex would exploit. Superman would stupidly donate his genetic material to like a museum,
Yes.
for like basically like a kid's installation. It's like,
Mhm.
look, one strand of Superman's hair can hold up a whole 50 pounds or whatever.
Yeah.
And then Lex going, you just left your hair at this museum that I could break into and take? Thank you, you idiot.
Yeah.
And I'm like, fair enough.
Well, and let's not forget, this is the Superman that gave away his weakness in
an interview
with Lois Lane. Yeah. Can I tell you, Sal, I don't want to get too far down this rabbit hole, but I've kind of grown. I've kind of liked the idea of Superman or Lex not being a billionaire, but fashioning himself as the world's greatest, like somebody that's like, I am the world's greatest criminal.
Yep.
Superman's the world's greatest hero. Let's play this out. Let's see if I can beat this guy, because living in a world full of Lex Luthors, they're kind of dumb and uninteresting. They just have a lot of money and they can brute force their way through a lot of things. And so
absolutely,
I think we've learned that, like, an actual billionaire Lex is not as compelling in real life as he is in fiction.
yeah. I mean, because people who were as impossibly rich as Lex Luthor didn't exist before that.
Yes.
And now that they do, it's like, oh, they're just deeply insecure and sad.
Yeah.
Which like Lex kind of is, they
finish your thought. Yeah.
Oh, just, it's like, I get it. I get why Lex is like so insistent on labels and titles and being the greatest and the best, and it's like, if you're so smart and rich, why are you bothering? You'd be smart enough to know to leave Superman alone.
Well, yeah, My Adventures of Superman does an interesting swerve out of this, where Lex is actually, I think it's Ivo. I forget who it is, but it's a character that's not traditionally associated with Superman comics. They make him this billionaire dork that's not really good at anything, and then he becomes Parasite. The brains behind him is Lex. Lex is not the one that runs the company. He's the guy that invents all the things.
Right.
And so then once that guy's out of the way, he's like, well, here's my opportunity to do the thing. But I think another, playing off this, but maybe taking the premise more seriously, I don't hate the idea of this master criminal who, like, why do you keep bothering Superman? It's like, well, I could fight that. I could beat Batman in an afternoon. That's boring to me.
But Superman is the challenge.
Superman's the challenge, and I just do it for the challenge. I'm just like, what can I get one over on Superman? Maybe there's something there, is all I'm saying. Maybe there's the pulling a crime angle. Maybe we should revisit that. Anyway, so Lex loves the cosplay. He cosplays as a general after making a deal with these other nuclear sales people that sell nuclear bombs to people or whatever.
Yeah.
He launches a nuke into space, or Superman grabs it and throws it in the sun. But this is where he has the genetic material to make Nuclear Man, who has one weakness, and that one weakness is if he even steps into the shade,
he just turns off, like the Energizer Bunny, or the example of why the Energizer Bunny is better.
Exactly. Yeah.
Boo! I'm like, what?
Yes,
that's dumb.
So we get a big this is where we get the three-way date, and like the sitcom, date.
Three's Company.
And then Lex does something that he did a lot cooler, I think in Superman 2, where he uses Superman's superhearing to send a message. It is weird though. He beams his message to what is Metropolis in these movies is just New York. Yep. What is Times Square? And he's like, Superman, look to your left. I'm like, how do you know where he's positioned?
How do you know? That moment I was like, oh, did he like find out who he is? Because he says look to your left, like, because you know where he is.
Yeah. Nope.
But no.
It doesn't, they were just not putting that much thought into it. Anyway.
Nope.
So he calls him over to, I guess, gloat before a fight with Nuclear Man. This
inappropriately long scene of Lex Luthor just talking to Superman.
Yes. Yep.
Also, like, Superman, it's one thing in the first movie where he's like, you diseased maniac, and that's like the only thing he says to him, but like just enough with the epithets, enough with like the insults. Like you're just going on and on and on. It's just really like, what are you doing, man? Like happening? This is it's still going. Like we just did the scene.
Yes. Yeah.
But they were like, because the movie's only like an hour and a half long.
Yeah, we can't have it be any shorter. So they get in this big fight. This is all over the world, ostensibly. It's all over a green screen, is where it is. But they crash into the Great Wall of China, and this is where there's a moment where like Superman uses his vision. to repair the Great Wall of China. In a later scene, he'll use telekinesis to like move people. I'm like, okay, fucking time out, everybody. Superman has one of the most iconic power sets in all of media. How do you guys keep fucking this up?
It's just a, it's more of Hollywood being like, let me just put my thumbprint in it. It's
Yeah.
never enough to be like Superman. It's in the intro to the cartoon.
Yeah. Faster than a speeding bullet, more powerful than a locomotive, able to leap tall buildings in a single bound.
And sometimes heat vision. We're good.
And then they added, like in the later ones, later Fleischer ones, they add X-ray vision and I think maybe heat vision.
X-ray vision, heat vision, freeze breath. We're good.
Yeah.
We don't need more.
Yeah, he's set. You could, and in fact, you could do to get rid of a few of them. Freeze breath, man, does he need that one?
Right?
So
he does use it in Superman Returns, which I was like, wow.
Yeah, and I know people don't like him. He uses it in Justice League, I think in the main one as well as the
right. Yeah, no, he in the set that definitely in the Snyder cut. Yeah, he freezes something. Yeah, he freezes Steppenwolf. Yeah.
Anyway, so this fight culminates in Nuclear Man's going to throw the Statue of Liberty. Superman catches it, and then Nuclear Man stabs him with his nails, and that poisons him for reasons
the nails
that are alluded to earlier, but unexplained. Like, why would that be a thing? Unclear.
Yeah. Yes.
This is going to poison him to the point that he starts like aging and shit. Like,
yeah. And I don't know. Maybe they saw maybe they read Dark Knight and they were like, yeah. The nuclear bomb goes off and he gets all withered and stuff. Like maybe we do that.
It's an iconic panel. That panel.
Like, hey, if you wanted, you could put Batman in this movie. That would have made it a little better.
I've mentioned it before, but Christopher Reeve was born. Christopher Reeve was younger than Michael Keaton.
Yeah,
and it's like why didn't we get Michael Keaton and Christopher Reeve in a movie together? Oh my god!
It kills me. It kills me. Yeah. And yet, like, it would have been horrible.
It would have been bad. It would have been bad at the time. We would have gotten it. The stars had aligned. The time we would have gotten it, it would have been awful, and that sucks.
Yep.
But in my mind, it's perfect. So anyway, this leads to like he's away. People are like, "Where's Clark? Where's Superman? Where's Clark? Where's Superman?" Not putting two and two together. And Clark is able to, because he got that crystal earlier. That's the spirit of Krypton or something. But once he uses it, that's all that's left of Krypton, and now he's fully an Earth person. Does that mean that he loses his powers? It does not. It does not do that. But it does mean he gets his powers back and he returns to normal. So he takes it. He becomes Superman again. Meanwhile, Nuclear Man, like, I guess sees a picture of Lacy in the Daily Planet, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm into it.
Her.
Yeah,
I'm in. Yeah." And I'm like, I mean, I get it, but like, also, what? Why her? Why not anyone? Like, why are you so focused on this?
I'm sure there's like a Playboy on Lex's mantle. You didn't see that and was like, wait, that's where I want to go.
Yeah.
That could have been funny if he's like a prepubescent teen and he's like, oh, titties, hold on, I just want to get laid.
That would have been amazing, actually. Yeah. That would have been kind of funny. Then they'll do that in the Ultimates.
There we go. So we get was that an Ultimate Hulk reference? Was that
yeah, that's Ultimate Hulk.
All right,
yeah.
All right. So this leads to a whole nother big, again, on paper. In fact, I think I could argue the staging, not the quality of the effects or anything, but like the staging, the things that happen in the Nuclear Man Superman fight are more interesting than the Zod Superman fight.
Yes. No, it like, that's the thing about this is a superhero fight.
Yeah.
The Zod fight is like fun, but also weak.
It's fun because it's like the first big budget superhero fight we got. It just hasn't.
Yeah, but they just go.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a lot of wire work where they're flying around each other. It's not. We get that great moment but they're character moments, like when he takes Zod's hand and he crushes it. But like he doesn't like slug it out with anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, and this one, again, like the Statue of Liberty bit, we're going to get a point where they fight on the moon, which again, doesn't look
great
good.
set piece, but
But
like
conceptually,
awful.
it's cool. It's so cool.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm like, "You're canon, don't." I assume what happened was they have a set. Like, they had a moon set for some other,
Yes.
like, shitty movie they were making, and
Well,
they
for
were
the
like,
moon landing, for the moon when we faked the moon landing, they had
"Oh,
that
that's right.
set.
They had it
Yeah.
left over."
Yeah. So like, well, let's just go back and let's use that one. That's why it looks
Yeah, it
so good.
was it was impressive for, like, the '60s.
Yeah, exactly. It's 20 years later. It's aged a little bit. We should have zhuzhed it up. Speaking
Yeah.
of the moon landing, there's several times where Superman just like looks at the American flag on the moon, or like has to set it
Yeah.
back up in the middle of his fight. He's like, "Hey, respect."
I got you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a moment in this where because basically Superman tricks Nuclear Man into an elevator and then cuts the power, and without the lights, Nuclear Man just powers down.
Yep.
And then he dunks it on the moon, and I very stupidly in my, because the sun comes up and hits it and he gets his powers back. And I stupidly in my notes was like, why not put him on the dark side of the moon? And then I looked it up. I'm like, of course, you idiot. That just, it's title locked. So we always see the same side, but that doesn't mean the other side never gets sun. that's not how it works. Anyway, so this leads to the moon fight and a cool moment where Nuclear Man like just pile drives Superman into the moon.
To the ground. It's awesome. It's good. It's like, yeah, that. You know what? You do it. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Again, on paper, none of this is. Some of it's bad on paper, but this fight isn't. It's like, these are the right instincts. If you had more money, or maybe you did this a few years later, this would have fucking ripped. This would have been cool.
Yeah. Superman fighting an evil Superman on the moon. It's like, you could have. Can you imagine they were making the Richard Pryor movie and they're like, "Oh, we don't have the budget. We don't have the money or the time for that." And do you think the audiences would even care?
Yeah, and they're like, "Yeah, this is what they want." Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then Nuclear Man kidnaps Lacy, takes her into space, where she's fine apparently.
Yeah.
And then Superman drags. Oh no, Superman moves the moon. Superman moves the moon in front of the sun to power down Nuclear Man. This would have wrecked the planet.
Oh yeah, no, it's no good. But he's also like spun the Earth in another direction, so he knows how delicate or powerful the Earth can take. Yeah. Well, he creates a lunar eclipse. It's like,
I mean, he's like, listen, I got to wrap this up. I rewound time. Everything was fine.
I'm glad they didn't steal that. It's like,
have him rewind again. Like, well, let me just do that again.
Yeah, you know what? This is stupid. Let me just go back to like the museum and just stop Lex from taking my hair.
So he moves the moon. He blocks out the sun, and he saves Lacy from space, and he drops Nuclear Man into a nuclear plant, which you think would make him more powerful, but I guess just powers up the Eastern Seaboard. And then that's the end of that. Bye-bye, Nuclear Man. End of Nuclear Man.
Yeah.
And then Perry buys the planet back in a deal that's just going to wreck him financially. Perry's
oh my god,
ever again.
There's no excuse for that. But
especially where we know newspapers are going. Perry, no, Perry, don't.
Yeah, maybe
he's got a few decades, right? He's got
a couple of decades. He'll be all right. He'll be all right until like the early 2000s.
And then Superman grabs Lenny and Lex, and then he puts Lenny at a boys' school.
Yeah.
And then Lenny gives one last iconic, "Oh no!" And it's like, it's never not funny.
It's never, for me, it never hit. I was frustrated every time it happened.
For some reason, I'm like, it's just goofy enough. Anyway. And then
it feels like a note. It feels like he's reacting to a note he didn't like. Where they were like, do it like no. He's like, I'm John Cryer. I don't take line readings.
Yeah.
You want it like this? Okay. From now on, it's just gonna be that. Like, I could totally see him doing that.
Yeah. So I thought it was funny. So then he takes Lex to the prison yard, and this is a moment. I'm very happy. I'm very glad that this was the last, as bad as it is, that this was the last Christopher Reeve Superman movie and not Superman 3. Because again, certain instincts are right. The final moment should be between Lex and Superman.
Yeah.
Would I have written a bit differently? Yeah, but at least the instincts in the right place.
I agree.
And he puts him there, and he's kind of like, you misplaced this or whatever. And instead of him flying by and saluting the American flag or some like prison guard or some shit, instead it's like Lex is like suddenly cares. He's like, will the world be vaporized? And Superman's like, no, it's as it always was, on the brink with good fighting evil. And I want to be like, I appreciate your stance, Superman, but that's not going to cut it. I'm sorry. If you're waiting, I've lived through enough leaders going like, I'm going to put my faith in the American. I'm not going to stop the bad thing. I'm going to put my faith in the American people that they'll stop the bad thing. I'm like, that's not why you're here. That's not your job.
They put their faith in you to do the right thing.
Yeah, so maybe do the right thing. Because he gives this final speech where he's like, it was wrong for me to get rid of the nuclear weapons. You all should make that decision for yourself. I'm like, bullshit, Superman. You should get rid of the nuclear weapons.
I don't recall it being a like voting issue.
I was never on the ballot for me to vote on nuclear weapons.
Yeah, or whether to get rid of them or not. If it's ever on the ballot, let me know.
How about we do that? How about that's the choice, Superman? How about we vote? Should Superman get rid of all the nuclear weapons? They wouldn't do that. Sorry, they wouldn't do that because they want their nuclear weapons. And in fact, I think a better version of this movie would have dealt, instead of some random warmongers meeting with Lex, one of them would be the president of the United States and be like, I want my nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
How do we get rid of the Superman guy? In fact, if I would really appreciate a Superman movie. I think you could do a Superman movie with Lex basically being like, no, you don't get it, Superman. I don't care about you. Right. I do this because every time I throw a new weapon at you, countries climb out of the woodwork waiting to buy it from me because every normal people, average everyday people, firefighters and stuff, love you. Government officials, presidents, emperors are scared shitless of you. They're waiting for the day that you drag them out on their ass for all the shit that you do to people. And so they'll spend millions of dollars for me to invent new weapons to stop you. You existing makes me money.
Right. That'd be great. I mean, he does like it's a little close where he's like, I'm gonna make money rearming the world from your nuclear bullshit.
Yeah.
But
flirting with that idea. It's the 80s version of that idea.
Yeah. You know what would have been great though? I would have also accepted this. Lex in a power suit.
Dude, it would have looked so shitty in this.
It would have looked laughable, but like I would have been very
We've never gotten in a movie.
Nope.
Supergirl and Superman and Lois both did their best with the budgets they had to do it, but for some reason the movies are too scared.
Yeah, movies are too scared to like put him in a red and green power suit that's like just Ripley's mech.
Yeah. Yes.
That's all I want.
Oh my God. Let James Cameron do a Superman. Anyway,
yes.
Gang, that is Superman, The Quest for Peace. Before we go, Sal, since we're wrapping up the Christopher Reeve era, I'm thinking going from bottom to top.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of ranking. I'm thinking my ranking would be, and I'm just doing this on the fly, I think Superman 3 is my least favorite, then Supergirl, then 4, then 2, and 2 and 4 would be flipped if 4 had the budget of 2. And then, of course, one's the only good. One's the only unqualified good. That's good. Good job.
Yep. I think for me, it's 3, 4, Supergirl, 2, 1.
Okay. All right. Let us know, guys. Let us know in the comments what you think. Please do me a favor and go to dangerboycomic.com. If you're like, DJ talks a lot of trash about superheroes, what's his take on it? Go to dangerboycomic.com so you can find out and put my money where my mouth is. I personally think you're going to love it. Sal, where can the kids find what you're working on?
Swing by youtube.com/comicpop or Comic Pop Returns to get some podcasts about your favorite comic books and stuff.
Check that out. Also, Sal and I are actually just going to go over and record something for my other podcast network, Only Stupid Answers. If you want to watch that live, you can do that over at patreon.com/onlystupidAnswers. We appreciate you supporting us over there. That's how we're able to make shows like this. It's all under the same umbrella. Thank you for everybody watching Krypton Academy. I think the next one we're going to do is Steel, and then maybe we'll get derailed and watch 90s movies. Let us know in the comments if that's what you'd like us to do.
Do you just want that?
Yeah, do you just
bring your monkeys? We'll just jump around. We don't care.
What do you want from us? Oh man. But thank you for everybody that joined us live, and we'll see you next time. Bye everybody.